now that it's become official that Donald Trump's going to take office and Biden's heading off, he wants to leave his administration with a bang. And I mean that literally. I mean that literally. Concerning the fact that we know that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the Democratic Party, and a lot of Republicans are on the side with prolonging the Ukraine war. Donald Trump is committed to calling back the war, trying to de-escalate it. We hope that he keeps with this promise. But Joe Biden wants to escalate it in his last final day. And it's not a hyperbole, folks. It's actually not a hyperbole. Because as the National Post points out, this is a Canadian publication even pointing this out, Biden authorizes Ukraine's use of long-range missiles inside Russia. Zelensky and Western supporters have been pressing Biden for months to allow Ukraine to strike military targets deeper inside Russia with Western-supplied missiles. So, in layman's terms, NATO blackmailed Biden and blackmailed the United States that wants to de-escalate the tensions, that wants to get out of the Russian-Ukraine conflict. That's what Trump promised on. That's what we're hoping with the mandate that Trump is promising on. And NATO wants to get this done as soon as possible before Trump gets in office. We got to get this done. We got to get them more weapons. We got to get into World War III because God forbid we can't have Trump in office. And Biden, being the slush that he is, agreed to it. He caved. He caved to the trenches, the mafia state of NATO. And you wonder why people like Trump criticize alliances like NATO. So, here's President Joe Biden has authorized the use of U.S.-supplied long-range missiles by Ukraine to strike even deeper into Russia. The latest easing of limitations meant to prevent the conflict from further spiraling, according to one U.S. official and 3 other people familiar with the matter. So, they're saying that we need to escalate in order to de-escalate. That's great measure. The decision allowing Ukraine to use the Army Tactical Missile System, or ATAMCs, for attacks farther into Russia comes as thousands of North Korean troops have been sent into a region along Ukraine's northern border to help Russia retake ground, as President-elect Donald Trump has said he would bring a swift end to the war, expressing skepticism over continued support by the United States. The weapons are likely to be used in response to decision by North Korea to support Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, according to one of its people. The official and the people familiar with the matter were not authorized to discuss the decision publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky and many of his Western supporters have been pressing Biden for months to allow Ukraine to strike military targets deeper into Russia with Western-supplied missiles, saying the U.S. ban had made it impossible for Ukraine to try to stop Russia attacks on its cities and electrical grids. Some supporters have argued that this and other U.S. constraints could cost Ukraine the war. Now, if you look at statistics, if you look at the images right now, Ukraine has far lost this war. Ukraine has completely annihilated itself. And we have done that to it. We have done this to Ukraine. This proxy war that started in 2014, as far as we know, could have been even earlier than that. But the overthrowing of their governments, the overthrowing of their democracy to install a puppet to aid Azov battalion soldiers, train them, give them a bunch of money and militia to attack Russia, didn't work out for them. Does not work out for them. And they're getting annihilated. And the further they go along with this, the further it puts pressure on nuclear assault, on World War III. And this is where I, myself, and other people have screamed at the top of our lungs that I don't give a rat's furry ass crack of how you feel about these countries, that we should be doing everything to de-escalate this tension. We should be doing everything in our power to de-escalate nuclear warfare. Because whether you're a liberal or a conservative or a Republican or a Democrat, no matter who you are in this world, You don't survive a nuclear catastrophe. That shouldn't be a partisan issue. That shouldn't be up for debate. We should always be digressing the possibility of nuclear warfare. But now we don't. We don't. We make it a partisan political issue. They're now putting advertisements on TV in the United States saying, get ready because it's going to happen. Just absolutely crazy that sounds. And it's happening. This is the reality. The debate has become a source of disagreement among Ukraine NATO allies. Biden had remained opposed, determined to hold the line against any escalation that he felt could draw the U.S. and other NATO members directly in conflict with Russia. Which, yeah, because now that North Korea is siding with Russia and NATO is blackmailing countries to further its support, it is going to escalate to the worst case scenario, which is exactly what they've always intended. They've always intended this mass escalation. They've always intended to get us into some sort of Cold War situation so that they can annihilate these countries, take over their land, take over their resources, and sell it off to the rest of the suckers. But guess what? If we go to nuclear warfare, there's no need for any of that because nothing will exist. Nothing. No human life, no animal life, no life on Earth. If we go to a nuclear holocaust, everything on planet Earth is dead. That is why everybody should be on board to de-escalate tensions. Everybody. The fact that they make this a partisan issue is just absolute psychotic. The fact that you have people in governments debating over this, debating whether or not we should escalate, we should further poke the bear. You're dealing with a superpower. You're dealing with Russia. Okay? This is not as simple as invading Libya, which you did before. I obviously disagree with the invasion of Libya, but now here you are provoking a possible World War III situation. And why? Because Biden's leaving office. Because, my God, Trump going to come in and de-escalate the war? Well, we got to make sure the war is already happening. Absolutely crazy. America is Ukraine's most valuable ally in the war, providing more than $56.2 billion in security assistance since Russian forces invaded in February 2022. Now, the other thing that we saw, the other news coverage that we did, they said it was about $183 billion. So I kind of have to lead towards the other thing than this. I think there's a little miscommunication on the finances there. Worried about Russia's response, however, the Biden administration repeatedly has delayed providing some specific advanced weapons sought by Ukraine, only agreeing under pressure from Ukraine and its consultation with allies after long denying such a request. That includes initially refusing Zelensky's pleas for advanced tanks, Patriot air defense systems, F-16 fighter jets, among other systems. The White House agreed in May to allow Ukraine to use CMS for limited strikes just across the border with Russia. So, this is the military mafia of NATO. This is military contractors. This is the entire global cabal of criminals that have just exploited humanity coming together and basically putting Biden in a chokehold to say, you have to advance this war. You have to allow us to strike directly into Russia, which we know is all terrible. We know that as soon as that happens, we get into a situation closer to World War III. I mean, they already put the doomsday clock to 90 seconds before midnight. That time is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And we are at a point now where we're more likely into nuclear annihilation than we did in the 50s, when your grandparents or maybe your parents thought about, the Red Scare, the Cold War. We're more in a situation now And it just seems like we have governments, because they are so either blindsided by the propaganda or themselves bloodthirsty enough to enact this because they're getting some sort of kickback or incentive to do this, whatever the case may be, for them to push this even further to possibly annihilate the entire globe is just absolutely barbaric. It is absolutely barbaric for them to even think about this. That how we don't have any representation really at the top level to decrease this as much as possible. To decrease this. But because now Biden is allowing this, the White House, America is now leading the charge for this. And of course, Canada's siding along with this. Other NATO allies are doing this to themselves. It's just an absolute disgrace. We're now just pushing ourselves into the suicide mission, thinking that's going to save Ukraine away from Russia, when really it's going to tick the clock even further for all annihilation. And just before Biden steps out of office. So here's
the plan.
Here's Volodymyr Zelensky. Here's Mr. Dupe himself, the crazed son of a bitch he is. And now he's going on to Sky News in the UK and being the actor that he is, because he really is an actor. He's pretending to be a leader when he's not. Is going to do this kind of Rambo speech to advance the further destruction of not only Russia, not only NATO-aligned countries, but his own people. Because let's not forget that over 1 million people in Ukraine have sacrificed. He's killed off generations of Ukrainian civilians in this war. A war that could have been de-escalated the day after. A war that could have easily got to the tables, done negotiation, followed some sort of procedure, got to international law, and done something about it. But here's what he had to say in the heat of the passion.
To strengthen Ukraine is the victory plan, which I presented to our partners. One of its key points is long-range capabilities for our army. Today, there's a lot of talk in the media about us receiving permission for respective actions. But strikes are not carried out with words. Such things are not announced. Missiles will speak for themselves. They certainly will. The plan.
Missiles will speak for themselves. I don't know, it'd be a hard time to hear what a missile says when it goes kapoo and destroys everything in sight. It'd be a hard thing to hear when I'm already dead. It'd be a hard thing to hear what a missile will tell me when the entire population surrounding it gets completely cooked away by nuclear annihilation. Because of dipshits like him escalating the war, thinking he's John Rambo, thinking he's Sly Stallone, gonna storm into the jungle and take everyone by storm. This man, who's never seen the front lines of war, never even seen the front lines of war. He's not defending his country. He's too busy getting GQ modeling tips. He's going on to magazine covers. He's doing media appearances, talking about how desperate he is. Oh, Ukrainians need more money. They need more money. You need to give us a credit. You need to sacrifice more of these countries. You need to liquidate your assets because Ukraine is in such danger. We got to do everything we can to stop the nefarious Putin. A guy who literally you've endured 20 years ago. President Bush used to fish with the guy. Used to go on fishing trips with Vladimir Putin. Barack Obama used to be friends with Vladimir Putin. But now he's just this crazed individual. He's such a terrorist. He's such a horrible menace to the entire globe. They don't tell you why. They don't tell you why. But they want you to believe how terrible he is to the point that you have to self-sacrifice yourself and your communities and everything in your countries to support this. And as Primo Radical points out, Primo Radical says, what do you do when you're a lame duck president who was forced into retiring by your own party and then saw your successor suffer historic loss as a repugnant of your foreign policy. You tried to start World War III during your last 9 weeks in office. And that's exactly what's happening, folks. The deep state, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, the military-industrial complex, people like Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Lloyd Austin, they're all coursing together to do their last act of war, their last big bang before Trump gets into office, because they fear that, oh my God, a character like him might decrease the war, which is something that Trump was mandated for, which is what people voted for in mass ways for Donald Trump to do. And they're so worried about that we have to go into this war of presence already. We have to go in self-sacrifice mode because, God forbid, Trump might decrease the warfare. Even though he's already committed to more destruction in Gaza. He's committed to that. He has people like Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. So he is kind of already in the presence of warfare. I don't think he's going to be completely against, against the U.S.'s, imperialist foreign affairs when you have people like that in positions of power. But because he might scale back and go to negotiation terms with Ukraine and Russia, hey, let's just start World War III. Let's nuclear annihilate ourselves. Here's even Justin Trudeau.
Becomes
let's hear
allowed.
Here's Justin Trudeau and what he had to say about allowing ourselves to get into World War III.
To invade and redraw lines on the map. And that's why Canada and others are unequivocal that Ukraine must win this war against Russia. And we will continue to be there to support Ukraine. And yes, Canada fully supports Ukraine using long-range weaponry to prevent and interdict Russia's continued ability to degrade Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and mostly to kill innocent civilians in their unjust war.
Now imagine. I mean, he's obviously saying this to a room full probably of investors. I don't know exactly where this is from. It says Lightspeed behind it. So I'm assuming these are already people already pumped up for the idea. Yeah, we're going to fight back Russia. Tell that to the people that are in tent cities across Toronto, across the country. People that are working endlessly to barely put a roof over their head. Imagine telling them that, hey, you guys, you got to give up more. You got to give up more. We got to send more money to this country so that possibly we can all be annihilated. Okay? You're agreeing with that? That's the Canadian way. Unequivocally, we got to go to World War III. This is from Justin Trudeau. This is from a drama teacher. This is from Canada, the peacekeeping nation of Canada. This is what makes me so disgusted with our governance. That as Canadians, we should be outraged by people like him. We should be outraged. But of course, he's on the side with this. He's sucked in the propaganda. And also the fact that his right-hand woman, Chrystia Freeland, we know about her background. We know about her ties with Ukraine Nazis. Her long-standing family history of provoking war. Well, guess where she's in a position of power in Canada to advance this kind of warfare. Hey, that's fine. If you don't want to support Ukraine, well, I have the ability to shut your bank accounts down. I can shut your finances down until you decide to be okay with World War III. That's how sick these people are. That's how sick sons of bitches they are. And bastards. Let's be gender neutral here. Just how disturbing that is. And you know who's also cheerleading for this? This guy, who you may know as George Soros' next to kin. This is his son, Alex Soros, retweeting the Wall Street Journal saying, breaking news, President Biden has for the first time authorized Ukraine forces to use Western-made long-range weapons to strike inside Russia. He says it's great news. That's great for who? Great for who? Who is that great for? Who's that great for? Yay, we're going to go into World War III. Yay! Possibility of nuclear warfare arsenal. Yay! He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't see the repercussions of war. He's never seen the front lines. He doesn't know the damage of it. You think this guy's ever fought in a war? God, no. But he could sit back, sip his Chardonnay, hang out with other big shot globalist sons of bitches, and cheerlead the fact of our own destruction. Cheerlead the fact that this malice piece of garbage, people like the Soros, people like the Bushes, people like the Obamas, the Bidens, whoever the case may be, people like Klaus Schwab, people like Justin Trudeau, people like Chrystia Freeland, leading us in the charge of our own self-destruction. Instead of, I don't know, God forbid, cutting back on military spending and investing that to people here in this country that are suffering right now. God forbid we actually take our tax dollars in Canada and the United States and put it towards Canadians and Americans. God forbid. But this guy says it's great news. This guy says it's great news. But at least someone is on the right side of history. Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter, who is the former UN weapons inspector and has been calling out these wars, has been calling out this BS for such a long time that the FBI raided his house because of stuff like this. He came on to X and said, MAGA Americans should shut down Washington, D.C. until Biden reverses his decision on the missiles. Surround the White House, surround Congress, shut it all down, because if we don't, there may be no America for Trump to get great again come January 20th. And I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. And that's what makes me so upset and angered, to the point that I am telling people now that are watching this, and I encourage people to share this around. This is something that should not be a partisan issue. This should not be something that should be politicized or only said that this is a right-wing issue or a left-wing issue. This is something that affects everybody. Everybody. This is something that should be easily getting people unified together. And if you care about your livelihood, if you care about your safetyhood, if you care about your members of your community and family members and your loved ones, then we all need to come together. We all need to come together, because in the event of World War III, it's going to be doom and gloom. It's going to be the worst case scenario. And like Scott Ritter said, you have to fight now before there is no chance to fight. Before you won't be able to have a pussy hack convention against Trump. Because once the planet goes boom, what else is there? What else is there? I don't think we have to worry about gay rights and transgenders and Fruit Loops versus grilled chicken. I don't think we'll have to have those fights anymore if the world goes boom. So let's try to prevent that. Let's try to get together, organize together, find the means, communicate with each other to really put pressure on these people that are self-sacrificing our national security by doing this. Because that is what's happening. That's what Justin Trudeau is doing. That's what Biden's doing. That's what other NATO-aligned countries are doing. They are self-sacrificing their countries against the whims of their own public, because they didn't vote for this. Nobody voted for this war. But we're being self-sacrificed and told to go down this barrel for the possibility of annihilation. So, thank God for Scott Ritter. Thank God for people like me. Thank God for other people that have their heads on straight with this. Because it amazes me that there are some people out there, there's still some people out there that I bring attention to this, not to, anger them, not to say this is all your, shit lib or conservative fault, or, put them in a political corner there, but just to say, as a human being, as a concerned human being, and as another concerned human being, aren't you worried about nuclear war? Aren't you worried about World War III? Aren't you worried about the doomsday clock getting closer and closer to midnight? Aren't you concerned about that? That's what we should be asking. But there are some people that will politicize this, and it just, like I said, if the world goes boom, what else matters?